Hello everybody, welcome to the Joy of Dwarven Painting. I'm Hamster, and today we're going to paint Tudor, so let's get into it. First, we're going to paint some of our Tudor walls. The Tudor mix for all your pieces is going to be stucco 2 parts, lava yellow 2 parts, and white 1 part. You're going to base coat all the Tudor sections with this mix, and it's going to take you a few coats. You might even start with something that's darker and neutral, like an olive or a cardboard, just to get the opacity going. But you're just going to base coat each Tudor section until it's opaque. Thankfully, Aaron mixed this for me. And just worry about getting this opacity. You don't have to be very neat, because all the wood areas we're going to clean up in future steps. This first coat will dry a little bit patchy, but we'll fix it with a couple more coats. Do it again. This is after 2 coats. I'm going to hit it one more time, and I think we should be good. And you really want this step to dry fully before you move on, because the next step is a wash. So if it starts pulling up some halfway wet paint, it's going to be a big mess. So you can do a large batch to make sure it dries over time, or you can hit it with a hairdryer just to be safe. The final step on the Tudor sections is a wash with a mix of base wood, earth stone, and black with a 2:2:1 ratio. You're going to want to focus on the kind of outer edges of each Tudor section, and we'll show you how to play around and push it around to get a nice effect. So these pieces are a little challenging to wash just because they are very flat. So what I've found helps is to just get a slightly damp brush and wet the surface a little bit, because what we don't want is a complete staining of this nice light surface. We just want an effect. We don't want to change the color. We just want to put a shadow effect on it. So this is just water on here before I get to my wash. You could even put water just directly on the piece as you apply the wash. What I do try to do is each little paneled section I'll completely cover, just so there's not a coffee stain type edge that dries in the wash. And then from here I have a completely clean brush that I'll just start pushing this around. And some of this I even will take a paper towel and push it toward the edges. It's going to cause a little bit of streaking, but you can always get back in with a brush. So now it's pulling out the sculpt a little bit and leaving a nice little perimeter. So this will take a little bit of practice, but you will learn how you prefer the effect to sort of finish on each of your pieces. Some of them might have a little more, a little less, but that variance is good across a large build. But this is why we want to keep a lot of moisture on here as we do this so that we can adjust it with the paper towel, with the brush. Now, because I'm not painting a large batch, some of my base coat was still a little wet, so it got lifted up here. So be careful of that, especially with the paper towel. Very light touch. Do not press down very much, just spread. Your downward pressure is very light as you do this. As you practice and build your confidence, to start with less. You can always let a light wash dry and apply more if you would like. But it's much harder to take wash off once it dries. You basically will have to rebase coat. See, what's nice about this is it leaves a nice little shadow line next to where the wood color will be. See, we have a nice little gradient. And little things like this, don't have to be mistakes. This can be a little chip in the stucco, a little something underneath, or if I really want to, I have this mix still on the palette and I'll just dab it right over. It might dry a little strange, which just adds to the variance of the washed surface. So little things like that, don't worry too much about them. I think they just add to the effect, honestly. Once you dab a lot of that excess off with the towel, mostly use water. That's what's pulling off this paint, is me getting too aggressive with the towel. But as you can see here, if I just add more moisture, dab very lightly, we can pull it off and still leave behind a nice green. So look how much I actually took off. So this is almost full base coat in the center here. So now if we want, we can apply it again. Do the same thing. Very light dabbing. Don't scrape any base coat off. Just go to the wet brush. Push it to the outer perimeter. Push, push, push. Dab lightly. Right, so you can see all kinds of different tiers of wash effect here. This one is a little bit of an outlier from the rest, so I'll hit it even more once again. So this is always a back and forth, this step. But you'll get the hang of it as you do multiple pieces. Next, we're going to paint the wood section, starting by cleaning up each one with a black base coat, just to get a nice even surface. This is where you want to start caring a little bit more about neatness, but not too much. Just use a perpendicular angle and light pressure. All the wood sections are raised up, so as long as you don't press down too hard, it will just grab the paint for you. You can use Dungeon Gray here too if you like, but I tend to think that the black will just do it better in one coat. And it resembles some of the musty Lowtown wood, scaffolding wood, so I usually stick with black. Next step on the wood is just a medium dry brush of base wood. It's basically a base coat, just leaving those recesses nice and dark for contrast. Just get a good amount of paint on your brush, rub the excess off on a paper towel. You don't have to rub a ton of it off because we do want decent coverage on here. Sometimes I do actually leave the brush even a little bit wet in the paint, just so we don't have to do a ton of layers. Once in a while that might, paint your recesses a little bit, but as long as you have a little variance, the final step fixes everything. So you just want to get through this one. You can always give it a second pass if you want a little more opacity, a little more color. The last step on this wood is a half and half mix of stucco and base wood as a final dry brush and a little highlight. It's the same as Cities, Untold, Lowtown, and a lot of the Wildlands type of wood. You've seen this mix before. It's kind of our classic wood highlight. So for this one, rub a little more of the excess paint off. We want a slightly less coverage, nice gentle touch. Just to hit some of the recesses. I have very little paint on here. I'm pressing down a little bit just because there's very little pigment on here. You can almost not see it until you really give it a go here. As you can see, it's starting to appear. Might take a couple passes as well, and then there we go. We got some nice highlight on the wood grain sculpt. These steps are going to get you through many of the Tudor sculpts. Let's move on to some specialty pieces. For some of your special Tudor pieces that have this extra ornamentation on here, it's just a couple extra steps to get these done. We're going to start by base coating each area with Stone Edge dry brush. It might be a little tricky to stay neat, but what you can do is add a little bit of moisture to your paint and sort of keep the brush just within the lines that you want to paint, and the viscosity will kind of fill it in for you and go into this little recess in the sculpt. And if you do make a mistake, you can just let it dry and go back over it with some base wood or that highlight mix with the stucco. If it's still wet, you might even be able to wipe it off with a finger or just a damp brush, like so. The main goal here is to get this in the recesses of these details, because the main design will then be painted with another color afterward. There, I'm just taking a slightly damp brush and sort of sponging off that little mistake. last step here is to just fill in the main design with cardboard, an opaque layer, leaving this stone edge in the recesses. So I'm going to take a smaller round brush with a decent tip. I'm almost freehanding it, just using the sculpt as a guide. You might be able to get away with a light dry brush, but I kind of like to have a little more control to make sure that we have a nice edge of that stone edge step. Because from afar on the table, that's what's going to make it pop out in a build. So they don't even all have to be perfect. The main thing is that you kind of approximate the design and have this hard line of stone edge. When you're doing something a little more detailed like this, just make sure that there's not a lot of excess paint on the brush. So right here, you can kind of see the shape of the blob of paint on the brush. Just set it gently on your paper towel and twist so that you can see just the shape of the bristles. That's how you know how much paint should be on there, where you can see a neat shape of the bristles instead of a blob. So I'm basically just tracing. I can see the sculpted design on there. So it doesn't feel too difficult. It's a little different from what we're used to doing on a basic Dwarven Forge scheme, but it's not terribly complicated. It just takes a little more patience. For precision, when you're doing fine lines, the key is points of contact. I have my forearms on the table. I can put the heels of my hand together, and then I can put my fingers on the piece. So I have a lot of control with the brush. It's all about the different points of contact. The more you can have while still having a comfortable position for your lines, the better. And if you find yourself in an uncomfortable position, just try moving the piece around as opposed to moving your brush around. So if I'm trying to get a line here and I'm most comfortable like this, I would, just move the piece around as opposed to trying to be in a goofy position with my wrist. If need be, you can always go back to a little stone edge just to neaten up that separation line. There's a slight recess from the sculpt that can guide you to get that nice contrast. So as you can see here, one of these got a little wonky, but as soon as it's in a build, it's going to look just fine because they all have this similar amount of contrast, and that's the pop factor. So I'm not too worried about that. You can always go back and fix it if you like, but what I would recommend is throw it in a build first and get a good look at it, walk away for a minute. And a lot of times when I think I've made a mistake, if I take a little time away and I see it on the table in a cool build, I pretty much forget about the mistake. Next, we're going to be painting the facade roof, and keep these paint mixes for the next piece as well, because they're going to come in handy. So the facade roof will start with a base coat of a mix of deep water green and black 2-to-1. This will mostly get covered up, so just make this speedy. Just mix up a dark green and get it on your piece so we can get to the fun parts. Next, we're mixing up a special blue, a brand new accent color that we're adding to Cities. It's 4 parts basalt blue, 2 parts white, and 1 part cardboard. Then we're going to dry brush this across this base coated piece, leaving it heaviest on the outer sloped part of the roof, and then adding sort of a gradient, slight shadow around the edges of this metal ornamentation. You're just kind of looking for a blue that's desaturated, kind of a blue-gray, but still a pleasant sort of poppy accent of blue. Hitting it with a light dry brush. Start light so we can sort of pull out this gradient. Just give it a light once over, and then we can be selective with where it gets heavier and more opaque. Toward the bottom of the slope, it's going to be almost fully opaque. I'm going to clean off my brush and still push some of this up, feather this out a little bit. You can do this just with dry brushing. I just got a little heavy-handed there. But we're looking for the same result. It's just a series of dry brushes to get a slight gradient. Don't forget the front part like I almost just did. And for the last step on this roof, just do this metallic edging in cardboard. The detail is slightly raised, so as long as you keep a nice light pressure, you should be able to just gently trace this out pretty well. And if you want, you can make this sort of dry brushy as well, but it looks nice, I think, when it's fairly opaque because this is a decorative roof. We have a lot of sort of beaten up roofs, maybe gloomier roofs like the dark ones in Lowtown. This one is supposed to be a nice happy roof to pop a color. And for the facade floor, we're going to do basically the exact same steps with those previous mixes. Base coat the inner detail with the deep water green and black mix, dry brush our blue mix, and then hit this ornamentation with the cardboard. So let's start with that deep water green. Don't worry too much about painting around that final ornamentation, because we'll just fix it in the next step, and it's nice and raised up off the piece and the sculpt, so it'll be easy to catch. So don't be afraid to hit this whole area with this blue color. Just make sure you get each little recessed area, because that's where we want it. And finally, cardboard. Utilize that perpendicular angle. And let the three-dimensional piece do all the work for us. The key is light downward pressure. Very little downward pressure. Just let the raised element grab the paint from you. As you're building the muscle memory and the confidence and getting a feel for the amount of pressure you want, just kind of think of like you're painting, but you're missing, hitting the edge, so that you get a feel for that pressure. And that's it for Tudor. Thanks so much for joining me, and tune in to Hamster's Hobby Hang on our Twitch channel at Dwarven Forge Live Thursdays at 6 p.m. Eastern. And hop into our Discord too. We have a great community of enthusiastic painters and collectors sharing tips and tricks, and it's a lot of fun. So we'll see you next time. Happy painting.